Good morning, and it's great to be with you here this morning. And my name is Andy Robbins. I've been at Intel for just over 20 years, and I've worked in a number of different functions. I'm not one of the 20, 30-year procurement veterans. I started at Intel in 1990 in finance. After 10 years in finance, I sold the light, moved into IT. And after 10 years in IT, I've moved into procurement. And I manage the IT strategic sourcing function at Intel. And it really is a critical partner to the IT business. We manage about $1 billion of spends. We have just over 2,000 suppliers. And it's a critical partner. And as you mentioned, we're going to talk about collaboration. And I think the picture here is really illustrative of what we're talking about. If I look at my relationship with IT, I could look at those two cogs and they could be independent, which basically means they can go at whatever speed independently. But I think what's critical here is we're connected. We go at the same speed, so we have to work together. And I'm really delighted this morning to have one of my big partners with me from the actual IT function, Dan McKeon.
Big partners?
Significant, important.
So thanks for having us. My name is Dan McKeon. I'm an Intel Vice President and GM in IT. I'm the solution provider for all of our silicon design engineers, all of our software engineers, and all of our services for revenue. So I have a big, diverse customer group. And you might say, well, why is this business person here? But this smart lady over here answered the question already, because we're all business people. And I've been at Intel for 29 years. I've only been in IT 4 years. Andy failed to mention that he used to work for me when he was in IT, and maybe I chased him out or
I keep that
sent
quiet.
him out or rotated him, Frank. But we're all trying to solve the same problem, and we all have to do it together, right? I can't solve any of my business's problems on my own without Andy and Andy's team, right? And so the problems we're talking about on how do we collaborate, you guys are talking about from procurement, how we collaborate with a business, people like IT that are trying to solve the business's problem is trying to do the same thing. So hopefully we'll share a few of those experiences with you and talk about what we're doing about it. So let's take a look forward. So this is sort of Intel. 100,000 employees, 164 sites. IT, my organization that I'm a member of, 6,500 employees, and we're in about 59 sites. So you can imagine, you just think of the data centers, the servers, the network, the clients, over 150,000 connected systems, including handheld and everything else, right? So Ted said, he gets a lot of the request of, just give me my stuff. Trust me, I get that request, just give me my stuff. And oh, by the way, my stuff doesn't work, right? So, but that's the bottom of the relationship. That's where we start, and that is, and we'll show you a little model, but, in a way, that's the reason we exist. But we have to start from there. So on the right-hand side, just some examples of some of the things we can do via collaboration with the business partners, really understanding what problem they're trying to solve. In my case, they're trying to solve design problems, efficiency, and time to market and velocity, right? So understanding those, and we'll share an example of that, is critically important. What problem are we trying to solve versus just give me your stuff, give me my stuff. And for me, it's even worse. If you think of compute and servers, a lot of my business, obviously my business partners know this stuff really well. They designed it, right? So for me to be a strategic partner with them is difficult, but not impossible. So in IT, we actually built a leadership model. Talking about the same stuff. Our IT leadership model is based on the same conversation. At the bottom of this model is a transactional relationship we have with our business partners. Ted said it great. Give me my stuff. Right? And this is the basis. This is the beginning. This is the reason we exist. For me, if your PC doesn't work or the network's down or email's not working or, God forbid, you can't get to the internet, right? They call us. And we better be good at this level. So as we talk about going up this relationship, being a strategic partner, you can't forget that you have to be really good at that base layer. But beyond that is, are we really contributing to business value? And it's a different conversation, right? And you need to drive to a different conversation, and you actually need to change the relationship you have with your business partners. You need to become collaborative, right? And I've seen this problem when I was in strategic capacity planning. I've seen it when I was in supply chain. I see it now in IT. But the conversation has to change from, if you will, a servant, the transactional relationship, to an advisor, to a consultant, to a strategic partner. And the conversation changes. The language changes, right? Go buy these servers for me. Well, what problem are you trying to solve? To, hey, I need to buy servers. What do you think I should do? To, just today, we agreed with one of our major divisions that we're just going to take over all of that. We know what they need. We can do it better. We know what SLA they need. We can do it cheaper. We can have better availability. We can go from 8 weeks purchasing to 2 weeks purchasing. Just give us the control. But it wasn't give us the control. It's what problem you're trying to solve, and I got the control. And we celebrated. To the next layer, which is where we're aspiring to be, is to help the company transform. Can we help lead the company in their transformation to the next business initiative, to the growth, to the internet-connected mobile device? And again, this changes yet again. It has to be a strategic relationship. So we're going to give you an example, and then obviously you want this to be interactive. So Andy, why don't you go to the next one? So Andy said, well, why don't you give an example in an area you own? One area I own is helping my design engineers move from designing a core CPU to a system on a chip, which is what the picture you see here, right? So this is, instead of having a motherboard and us designing one component, integrate everything onto one component, include the drivers, the software, everything else. And you guys are looking at me like you're crazy that you're going to talk about this example. So I said, no, Andy, we're not going to talk about this example. We'll give you a different example. So we brought something else.
All right, this is a little bit more straightforward. So when I started out in my career, I started in England, and what was interesting, the second company I worked at, very traditional British company, and if I wanted to get a coffee break, guess what used to happen? There was a little old lady who would push a little cart through the plant and would serve everybody coffee. Now, you better hope that you were on the early part of her rounds, because towards the end it was not quite so good. But that was indicative of where we were at that time. That was the norm. And it was interesting. I left that company and I joined Intel, and things were a little different. Intel's well known for technology and automation, and in this particular area, they did things very differently. I'm sure that you've seen a vending machine before. What I've heard, you get this sort of browny black kind of liquid out of those that I think some people say it's like coffee. I'm kind of not really so sure. But it's kind of interesting that, we're very familiar with this. This is the norm. So you may be wondering at this point, as Dan was saying, we're going to share an example of transformative value. Well, what has this got to do with IT or creating transformational value? And I think what I'm going to show you here is you don't need to be working in rocket science like Dan's group. I mean, the things that Dan's group do, frankly, is beyond my comprehension in terms of chip design. But you don't have to really understand that there's some really simple things that you can do to really create and drive major value. So I don't know if you're like me, but have you ever forgotten a lead, or you need the latest dongle or gadget to get things connected? Yeah, it's frustrating. Coming here, for example, I needed to make sure that I remembered my little USB stick. But where do I go get one of those? Another thing that I find a lot, one of the things we pride ourselves at Intel is on safety. And we do sort of walk around the office and help folks with ergonomics, make sure their desks are set up appropriately. It's amazing the number of times that I see someone with the wrong mouse or something, and then I say, hey, you need to get a new mouse. And I can see it's like, oh, no, I need to go buy a mouse. I don't know where to buy it. It's a real pain. So they didn't bother. So we had a problem, which basically, for PC accessories, which were a company with 100,000 people, and as Dan said, we're global, massive reach. Basically, how do you get the right items, the right location, when I need them, with no inventory and no effort? And I can tell you, PC accessories for Intel is a lot of money. So this is really important. So what do we do today? Well, I don't know if you're like me, but if I go into the office supply cabinet, wow, there's a whole lot of PC junk there. Stuff that's really old, and we buy stuff just on the hope that someone's going to use it, or maybe someone bought the wrong stuff, and it's just piling up. We've also moved to ordering online. But I come back to the problem statement. If I was coming here and I didn't have a USB stick last night, I'm stuck. Not even Amazon with one-day shipping is going to get it to me. For my $10 USB stick, I'm probably going to pay $20 for shipping to get it here. So it really doesn't work. So we had this problem of, how do we get a breakthrough? Kind of simple area. So what do we do?
So we took, it's not rocket science, we took a traditional means of delivering fulfillment locally and applied it to IT. And we created an Intel IT vending machine that is now in all of our locations. The business problem is, how do I get PC supply 24/7, with no inventory, that I have to hold, with direct billing to the business group that purchases it, and we even wanted email notification back to the manager. And so we defined the business problem in partnership with Andy's team, which basically led us to a collaborative design. Now, this doesn't exist, and Andy can talk about it a little bit. But if you imagine what it is, in my building, it's in the cafeteria right next to the vending machines. You can walk up, and it has a digital display, and you can scan through and purchase any peripheral. So I no longer have the person coming up to me saying, I lost my dongle thing for the projector. Right there. Walk in, take your Intel badge, swipe it, purchase it on the spot. Me as a manager, I know it works because I get the email that this employee just purchased this peripheral device, charged to my department, right? And the satisfaction has been amazing. I mean, when you operate one of these things, people walk up and want to see it work and want to see it operate. They're amazed by it. It's almost, they think it's magic, but it's not magic, it's collaboration.
Exactly. And by the way, I love the instructions on the machine here. Select item, swipe card, take item. That's pretty straightforward. I think even I can manage that. But, it wasn't magic. And as Dan said, it was created really by effective collaboration. So from a strategic sourcing perspective, so what's important here? Well, we didn't really find very many IT vending machine vendors. In fact, we couldn't find one. So that's a bit of a challenge. But what did we have? Well, we had a vending machine supplier who were supplying those coffee cum snack ones. well, maybe they'd be interested in that. But they don't do IT. You know, we have other things. We have a flat screen panel on the front here. And it's interesting, that's the actual reader is a near field communications reader. So even if we did have an IT vending machine supplier, I don't know that they would have had the embedded Intel architecture in the screen, the ability to be able to connect it up here. So that was a market that we had to create by persuading the existing vending machine supplier, hey, to go invest in this. This would be a good thing for them. You know, and it's interesting as well of, you know, as Dan will describe it in a minute here, the results that we got, the supplier took on the inventory. So we shifted all the inventory from holding it ourselves to the supplier. So you may say, well, wow, well, what's in it for the supplier? They had to create a whole new market, a new design, they're taking on the inventory. But it's a great example of collaboration with the supplier, because you can imagine now this food vending machine company now has a completely different product line. And you imagine everybody here could probably benefit from that. It's huge. So it's a great example now of creating new value such that that supplier is willing to invest with us quite a lot of money to make this work. And for us, we save money. They've got a new opportunity. You know, Dan wins because he's not having to go off and spend a lot of money on inventory. And from an Intel employee perspective, you can just wander along the hall and basically get what you need. So we really got great results.
So we put them up here, right? Because in reality, it is about the business value, the business impact, right? So we took this example because it was a very transactional layer example, and we changed it to actually move it up to the second layer of that pyramid that we showed you. We achieved, 95% customer satisfaction, 100% traceability, no inventory because it's vendor managed inventory. It's automated vendor managed inventory. They get notified when their stuff's leaving the machines. They refill it just like you would if it was a Coke machine, right? Our cafeteria doesn't hold that. The vendor does. It's, so it's zero inventory to me. The process steps dramatically reduced, right? Select items, swipe badge, get product, right? And then an email goes in and get notification. Like I said, 24/7. Imagine PC services at Intel over those locations trying to manage this. Obviously, we're a manufacturing company as well, 24/7, right? It no longer exists, right? And it's just been a huge value. And the response that IT got from such a simple change has been amazing. It's been amazing because it's just been such a nagging problem for so long, and it gets worse, right? As I don't know if anybody has a newer device. I can sit here with Andy and have a different device from the same manufacturer. It'll have a different dongle, right? I've been in a meeting saying, "Hey, anybody got a dongle?" Right? And yeah, I got one. Well, it doesn't work. We both have a X vending, from the same vendor laptop, but different supply, right? So it's just a simple example on how if you partner, understand what we're trying to achieve, and then collaborate. We could never have done this, as I said, without Andy and his team. It didn't exist. The solution didn't exist in the industry.
Yeah, and I mentioned PC accessories, not very exciting. $2 million MPV, pretty exciting, yeah? Not bad, huh? So what did it really take for us to get there? And I think we've got some things that we think are important, not just specific to this example, but I think these are day-to-day attributes that we absolutely have to live by in order to make these kind of things happen. And I mapped them out against the IT leadership model, which, by the way, I've adopted for IT strategic sourcing with our suppliers. If you were to talk to our suppliers, they're very familiar with this model. They understand the different layers. It works beautifully. But what we've recognized here is you start at the bottom layer of just transacting. That takes trust. We have to succeed or fail together. It's not a, you go get me this. We have to build that relationship. On collaboration, I think one of the key things there is you have to have a common goal, and you really have to talk about the outcome that you want. And I go back to the problem statement here. You know, what we wanted was 24/7 availability. We want it available now, no inventory, et cetera, et cetera. Once we got clear on that, I think the rest starts to fall into place.
Yeah.
You know, obviously,
I'm going to add to that. It isn't, the conversation isn't, go build me an IT vending machine. The conversation is, what problems are we trying to solve? What are our success metrics? It's a collaboration that got us to, wouldn't it be great if we had an IT vending machine, right? And so it's that changing of the conversation. It's instead of some of my partners saying, go buy me a server, it's, you know, what problem you're trying to solve. Let me decide, even in IT, you know, whether you need a server or not. You know, because with cloud virtualization, everything else, the conversation has changed.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, in that partnership, you look at the skills. Now, one of the procurement folks suggested going off and looking at the food vending machine supplier. One of the technical folks is like, how can we make this really simple? Well, how about near-field communication scanner? Perfect. You don't even have to put your badge in or anything. You just get it close to the machine. So, again, it was, what are the outcomes we want? Really simple. 4 steps. How do we make it happen? We all brought in our different expertise. And, you know, being willing to challenge the status quo, taking a risk. I think that's a big thing here. This could have failed. We might not have found a supplier willing to do this or capable. But hey, that's okay. We challenged the status quo. We pushed it out there. And I think also, you know, willingness to walk in others' shoes. From an IT perspective, it would have been very easy to say, accessories, who cares? But there's frustration that we hear by being connected to the user community. And I think from my standpoint, that also then talks about knowing the business. You know, from a procurement sourcing perspective, you have to know the business. You have to be able to, say, sit with them, come together, understand what they need, rather than protecting our own turf. So, as I say, these are one of the things that we thought really came into play, but it doesn't matter whether you're doing system on a chip, as Dan mentioned, where we're trying to reduce the time to value, which is rocket science, or just this real simple thing of how do we get PC accessories to folks, you know, when they need them quickly and efficiently. So we have one little commercial here. If you're interested in learning more about IT at Intel, we have a group called IT at Intel, and you can check that out. It's a whole lot of initiatives. You can learn more about procurement as well. And that is down there, you see the little tag here, intel.com/IT. And with that, it's an interactive session, so we didn't want to take too much time, so we'll open it up for any Q&A.